Anyway, our signs on the hydro pole, Dam the Lardo right to Trout Lake City, and Log the Future, go clear cuts. And this is my old saw from Williams Lake in 1969. I was a tail sawyer at the sawmill.
Oh yeah?
And they gave me this saw blade because it was cracked and they couldn't use it anymore. So I sort of have it here as a reminder that it'll be there probably longer than this mill will be here. This mill is going to fold up, and I'll still have my saw blade sitting in the ditch here while they have their empty log yard. And
yes. So Robin, where did you move from? Were you born around here?
I was born in Vancouver.
And then how did you move out here?
Well, my father was born in Nakusp, and he went to Vancouver to get university and became a teacher and married my mother, who was a registered nurse. And so I was made in Vancouver, and I lived there till I was 17. And then I moved up to this area because I picked up a hitchhiker from Belfer. He was trying to get to Argenta. He was a Quaker professor from back east somewhere in Pennsylvania. And he took me to the Argenta Quakers meeting, and I asked if there was any land for sale, and I found 20 acres for $5,500.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was lucky.
And that's where you do all your ice sculptures in the wintertime?
Yes.
It's very cool.
I did an ice sculpture here with our pump system, and it covered the whole tree for like 30 feet, the red maple tree, and it looked pretty neat.
I bet it did.
For the mill workers, but that was only one particular winter. Anyway, I got to clean up all this wrecked cars in this yard here because it looks kind of bad, eh? All these wrecked cars. I'm going to have to move this yellow truck, and it's all going to get crushed.
Really?
Everything's going to get crushed and sent back to Japan to make more cars, I guess.
And how are you going to take them somewhere?
Well, the car crusher comes from, where is it, Castlegar or Trail? And you got to have 40 wrecks, and he'll come up and he'll take all your cars away for free. He just crushes them and puts them on a semi-truck and drives away.
Very cool.
My t-shirt explains that the North American continent should be split down the middle instead of across. Like we should have West Mars and East Mars and call it two happy countries beside each other. Just pave a highway from Alaska to Mexico, and we don't have any borders to cross. We can just go back and forth as much as we want.
That's great.
So when you moved here after you met with the Quakers and you bought your land, what did you do?
I built a log cabin, and actually first thing I did was I built a teepee. And I lived in the teepee all winter and decided, well, this is too harsh. It gets kind of cold at night, so I decided to build a log cabin. And it was a little warmer, but not much. And I just, well, I had a problem with the mosquitoes in the summer, and I had a little problem with the cold in the winter, but I managed to overcome it because I got to know how to dry out firewood. I didn't know much about firewood when I first got here from the city. I didn't know how dry it had to be. And
so how old were you, Robin?
21. So after about 4 years, I got smart and had a woodshed and lots of dry firewood, and I was okay in the winter. I just loved the winter.
That's great.
And she had an oil cook stove. She had an oil heater back in the 70s, right?
Yeah. No. Wooden stove.
When did you buy the wood stove?
81.
81.
In here.
But before that, she had oil.
Huh. And then you know how when I asked you in Caslo to come on Channel 10 and you were saying that, well, can I talk to you about your medication and...
Yeah.
Can you tell us Like, what do the doctors diagnose you with?
I'm a manic depressed bipolar schizophrenic.
What does that mean?
It means all around screw up. Like, I don't know. It's a chemical imbalance. They say it's a chemical imbalance in my brain, but they're injecting me with a chemical every 3 weeks. I get a shot, and it helps me sleep at night. I get like 10 hours sleep and 12 hours sleep, sometimes more. And normally when I'm off the medication, I'm not sleeping much more than 6 hours. But that's normal, because when I was younger, before I had a problem with medication, I was working steady for a bricklayer in Kaslo, Paul Bagenstos, and I was only sleeping 6 hours a night. That was my normal pattern, 6 hours. And that's the same with a lot of people. So, like, I don't see where the problem is.
Yeah.
It's just...
And then what, like, how did something happen? What?
Well, I caused a little ruckus because I was laid off from work. My boss died, and I didn't have much else to do except ride around on my bicycle and look for problems. And I always went to people like Kenny Wapple at the shake mill, and I started talking about people being paper machines, and we're just cutting all the trees down so we can use paper, and we have to run our whole lives on paper, and we're wondering why we're losing the ozone layer, because we're mowing all the trees down for paper. And it just got people upset, and they always phone the police that Robin's off his medication again, so I have to get more medication.
But when did the doctors diagnose you with this?
In 1981.
So how old were you?
71, 30, see, 73. In 73 I was 21. So that's 8 plus 21 is
81, you said? 1981?
21 plus 8.
That's 29.
That's 29. I was 29 when I was first diagnosed at the hospital in Port Coquitlam.
And I don't know much about it, right? But can you tell me a little bit about it? Like, some people say...
Well, I was just excited at the time because I was falling in love with this little 15-year-old who wanted me to be her groom, and I didn't understand what a groom really was, and it was just a guy that was supposed to ride her horse at the horse farm. And I thought that she wanted me to be her husband because it was a groom. I was to be the groom. And I got all excited when we went to town one day, and there was a mailman that stopped beside us. We were waiting. My brother's wife was going into the dentist for a few minutes, and we were waiting in the car, and this postman stopped beside us, and he ran out of the door with the van running, and he had a big box that didn't look like it had any stamps or anything on it. And he ran down to the basement of this building and made this delivery, I guess. And I said, that looks kind of strange, because he left his door open and the van running. Mail truck shouldn't do that. So I went up and I took his ignition keys and I shut the van off. And then I closed the door, and I was waiting outside for him when he came back. And I said, I razzed him. I said, how come you didn't shut the van off and take your keys? And he said, me no speak English. Me no speak English. Parlez-vous français, right? He was a French guy. And then I said, well, I'm sorry, but I can't allow you to continue like this.